Howdy folks, Matt here from Gulf Coast Fit. Joining me is the one and only Gringa Andrea, and today we're doing a little video focusing on hamstrings and calves. Two muscle groups that typically we try to isolate one or the other because we have a target muscle group we're trying to emphasize on, but there's kind of no avoiding the fact that calves and hamstrings typically work together, work in conjunction with each other. So when you're doing hamstring curls and whatnot, the calves are the secondary movers, and on a lot of calf raise exercise, even like standing calf raises, hamstrings are getting a good stretch and recruitment as well. Like when you're doing standing calf raises, get a deep hamstring stretch, and we typically recruit both muscle groups together. But like I said, when training, it's more common to try to focus on isolating hamstrings or try to focus on isolating calves and separate the two. And I get that, and I try to do that. And for anyone who's been training long enough, they know that's a challenge in and of itself. And oftentimes we feel like we're not succeeding at isolating one or the other. So I kind of want to flip the script today and show you 3 exercises that embrace utilizing hamstrings and calves working together intentionally, not necessarily trying to emphasize on the hamstrings, not trying to emphasize on the calves, trying to get the two to work together like they're designed to do. That way you kind of take out that negative feeling of not doing a sufficient job of addressing one or the other. Let's do exercise variations that put them together, and you can feel like you're getting a 2-for-1 extra bang for your buck kind of training effect. So I'm going to show you 3 different exercises that utilize both the hamstrings and the calves. Even if these exercises are conventionally used or implemented to address calves or hamstrings, we're going to try to execute them in a manner that brings us as close to like a 50-50 sensation as possible. So we're going to start in a supine hamstring curl position on this bench. So Andrea is going to face down on the bench. We're going to need a dumbbell for this. Now, as we know, hamstring curls are designed to focus on the hamstrings, but doing it in this fashion will help you recruit the calves. So let's start with the feet in the upright position. Let's scoot your kneecaps a little closer to the end of the bench. Scoot back over. There we go. All right, I'm going to place this dumbbell in between Andrea's arches. She has to do a good job of continuously clenching and engaging her adductors and calves to hold the dumbbell in place. Now what she's going to do is extend her knees, dropping the dumbbell towards the floor. When she does that, she has to extend and point her toes, or otherwise she risks dropping the dumbbell. And then she's going to curl the weight back up right there to perpendicular to the ground, shins vertical. She's going to lower the weight, point the toes. Now this, holding the dumbbell and pointing the toes, is what helps to requires that you engage the calves more than a hamstring curl machine per se, because the hamstring curl machine will put a pad right here on your soleus or down towards your Achilles or ankles. Well, we use the calves much more so when, let me move this bench out of the way, when we're clenching a dumbbell in between the feet, pointing the toes. Let me make sure she's in the picture. Yep, all right. And not only that, but you want to think about using your calves just like any muscle building exercise with a focus or a target muscle group. When she's extending her knees and dropping the weight towards the ground, pointing her toes, that's dorsiflexion, pushing her toes away from her to hold the dumbbell. She's going to think about controlling with the calves while she's stretching and lengthening the hamstrings in the eccentric phase. And then on the way up, it's going to feel like a normal hamstring curl. You're shortening and contracting the calves. But also, she's got to keep clenching the weight with her feet, which helps engage the calves, the insides of the calves especially. But the mind-muscle connection, as always, is very important. And things are starting to get real here. Let's get 3 more reps. This is something you can't get erratic with. If you're holding a dumbbell in between your feet and you start moving too fast, things start shifting around, and then you might lose your weight, whether it's on the ground or on yourself. We don't want either of those situations. Let's get one more. All right. Now you can implement different tempos, pauses to help emphasize on the effect you're going for. But that was a nice slow tempo both directions. Can't go wrong with that. So that variation of a hamstring curl, holding a dumbbell in between your feet with the arches of your feet, will help utilize your calves more than a hamstring curl machine. Now, remember, you don't want to be of the mindset that holding the dumbbell and using your calves or your adductors is taking away from your hamstring recruitment or focus on your hamstrings. You don't want to feel like doing the hamstring curl is taking away from your focus on the calves. You want to embrace the fact that they're working in conjunction with each other, and you can kind of go back and forth thinking about where do I feel it more in my calves, what part of the movement pattern do I feel it more in my hamstrings. Can I try to make myself feel like I'm recruiting my calves more effectively or hamstrings more effectively in one part of the lift or the other? So that's up to you and how it feels. You always got to pay attention to how you feel. And so we're going to go on to exercise variation number 2. So Andrea is going to take 2 dumbbells now, swing around here. This is a Romanian deadlift variation, and we're going to elevate the balls of our feet onto these little rubber mats. You can use weight plates, discs, whatever. And honestly, you don't have to have something you're elevating your toes on, but I do like to enhance the stretch we get all down the posterior. So this is a combination of a Romanian deadlift with a standing calf raise. It challenges your balance a bit, but that's just fine. So we're going to hold the dumbbells in front, just like we would with a typical Romanian deadlift. We're going to hinge at the hips, slide the dumbbells down, keeping them very close to the body. Big hamstring stretch. And then when Andrea comes up, when she stands up, she's going to go into a calf raise. Big squeeze. And come down, heels down, stretch to the ground, big hamstring stretch. You're going to come up and go into the calf raise. And see how she transitioned into the calf raise as she reached lockout with her hips. So there's a smooth transition from the Romanian deadlift into the calf raise. See how the heels go back down to the ground. Elevating the balls of the feet help you get a deeper stretch in your hamstrings, and in this case in your calves as well. More plantar flexion with the ankles, more plantar flexion and dorsiflexion when you've got this elevation going on. Yeah, she's keeping the weights real close to her shins and thighs. Now obviously here you feel the calves the most when you're at the top executing the calf raise. And you feel the hamstrings the most when you're stretching and descending down in the bottom of the Romanian deadlift. But it's a good idea and it's fun to try to keep those 2 muscle groups working together. Keep recruiting your hamstrings even when you're at the top. And you can do that by clenching your glutes and thinking about squeezing and engaging your hamstrings even when you're up in your calf raise. And at the same time, when you're coming down into the Romanian deadlift, you can think about maintaining tension in the eccentric stretch as you bring the dumbbells down towards your feet. Let's get 2 more. So by the end of the set, great, just go and set those down. By the end of the set, we want to feel like we did an effective set of both Romanian deadlifts for the hamstrings and standing calf raises for the calves, which is a little Venn diagram we're making here. So it's a fun new game you can play where you're trying to not only address 2 muscle groups in one, but feel like you're doing a hypertrophy exercise for what would be 2 separate exercises. And it's in my opinion, one of the biggest benefits to doing these type of combination exercises. You get a lot of practice with your mind muscle or your mind body, we'll call it mind recruitment, because no matter what exercise you're doing, you already know that you're focusing on your target muscle. But when you have to transition in your head based on where you're at in what portion of the range of motion and what end of the range of motion emphasizes on this muscle versus the opposite end of the range of motion, which emphasizes on that. When you have to keep switching your mindset to recruiting which muscles you want to intentionally, it's kind of a double workout for your mind-muscle connection as well. So our third and final hamstring and calf variation combination is going to be a lying hamstring curl using the stability ball. So Andrea's going to lay down on the ground here. Another hamstring curl variation. We did one on the bench here facing down in a prone position. Now we're doing one laying down in a supine position. Andrea's going to put her feet up on the ball. Now there's no getting around it. Even when you're just doing hamstring curls with a stability ball laying on the ground, you're already using your calves a lot. Sometimes you already feel like your calves are working just as hard as your hamstrings, but I'm going to show you how to get the most out of combining calves with hamstrings. So first what we're going to do is show you a couple of conventional supine hamstring curls. And she's going to lift her hips off the ground just a little bit so her hips are no longer on the ground. Then she's going to tuck her heels in towards her glutes. As she does so, you'll see the hips come up a little bit. That's fine. When she rolls the ball back out, hips go down a little bit. So let's do a couple more. Hips go up as you curl in. Hips go down as you curl out. Let's go again. You're already working the hamstrings and calves together. Let's get one more. But in order to emphasize on the calves even more in this conventional hamstring exercise, what we're going to do is roll the ball out just a little bit. So she's starting more with the heels on the ball rather than her Achilles and calf region. And what she's going to do is as she goes into the hamstring curl and pulls the ball in towards herself, flexing her hamstrings, she's going to press the soles of her feet down into the ball. So she's going to extend her foot into plantar flexion, basically doing a calf raise on the ball as she curls in with the hamstring curl. So it's going to start to curl in and then push your feet down right there. And it might not look like she's doing a calf raise, but by pushing her toes into the ball and really pushing the whole sole of her foot into the ball, she's recruiting her calves much differently. And once again, it's up to you. Flex it, squeeze it, make it feel like it's going to cramp up a little bit. Come on back out, toes come up. So we curl in and we push, plantar flexion pushing into the ball, and we roll back out. We're going to feel hamstrings no matter what. But by pushing down, extending your feet and your toes, and with the plantar flexion of pushing down into the ball, you're essentially doing a calf raise amidst your hamstring curl. It's going to feel kind of funky at first. All these might feel kind of funky at first because now all of a sudden you're trying to juggle two different mind muscle targets, two different bullseyes that you're trying to hone in on. But embrace that challenge. And like I said, that is part of the challenge and part of the fun. And I think very beneficial for your training. Adjust this ball. Sometimes you need to adjust the ball a little bit. Let's get 5 more. Yeah. Nice. All right, now there you have it. Now, you could put all these 3 in a little tri-set circuit type of deal and run through it 3, 4, 5 rounds if that's your goal, is to do a combination hamstring and calf posterior lower extremity session. Or you could throw one of these variations in while you're training hamstring specifically or calf specifically. They don't need to all be tripled up together. I'm just showing you 3 different ways to practice working on utilizing and synergizing your calves and your hamstrings, which again, they're designed to work together. It's a bit ironic to always try to isolate one or the other because that's just not how they function. So I think it's very beneficial to embrace working with them together because ultimately, when you can get your calves and your hamstrings to function together more effectively and efficiently, then they're going to be able to produce more power, more speed, more strength than they would if you're piecing them together. So I think it's good to put them together and turn them into a little bit of a Venn diagram. So try that little 3 exercise tri-set together, or try one at a time and sprinkle it into your lower body training whenever you want to. But most of all, have fun, enjoy the process, and we'll catch you next time.